Microsoft continues to shock the gaming world. How's it going, guys? I'm Ray, and this is my channel, Xbox Ready, where we get together and talk about Xbox stuff, the latest news, rumors, pretty much anything I want to talk about as long as it's about Xbox in some way. Now, in a time where you think Microsoft, Xbox, they would just sit back, relax, just let everyone be mad at PlayStation about the price of the PS5 Pro, Microsoft instead decided to go, no, we want everyone to be mad at us. You know what? Now would be the perfect time to announce another round of layoffs to our gaming division. Yep, news outlets got their hands on a memo from Phil Spencer where he says, we are cutting 650 jobs. In the memo, he does say it's related to the merger of Activision Blizzard into Microsoft. It's being reported that these layoffs seem to be some more redundancy layoffs, like they have multiple positions or duplicate positions across Activision Blizzard, Xbox, and Microsoft. It's not like the Bethesda closures we saw a couple of months back. At least that's what they're saying, because Phil Spencer in this memo says that no games, devices, or Xbox experiences are going to be canceled or affected by these layoffs, which I assume means no studio closures. Or at least I hope it doesn't have anything to do with studios, because that would be a terrible look considering that Raven Software is filing a complaint over discrimination in regards to their union status. Now, if you're reading through this memo and you're thinking, this really sounds familiar, well, that's because there are parts of it that feel like they're straight out of a corporate layoff playbook. In this memo, Phil Spencer says that they are organizing their business for long-term success, which is eerily similar to the choice of words they used when they closed down those Bethesda studios, where they said, we're trying to align our plans and resources to best set ourselves up for success in this complex and changing industry. Or back in January when they laid off 1,900 people, where they said the leadership of Microsoft Gaming and Activision Blizzard is committed to aligning on a strategy and an execution plan with a sustainable cost structure that will support the whole of our growing business. And I think the question that is on my mind and people who are in the industry and people who are friends of those people in the industry is, how many more jobs need to be cut in order to finally level out and prepare yourself for success? And it's not just Microsoft, it's not just Xbox. I've talked to people at Riot who have been laid off, Unity. I've talked to a number of people who work at other studios that have experienced layoffs, one of which said, yeah, the people that they laid off were not expendable. We still absolutely needed them. I remember I made a whole video about this, layoffs and the uncertainty of the gaming industry, and I was surprised to see a lot of people commenting, who cares about this, Ray? Who cares? And well, I care. And in the state that Xbox is in, they're trying to incorporate Activision Blizzard. Their attention is split in a million different directions. It would be completely naive to think that all of this is not going to have an effect on your Xbox experience, like when they apparently shut down their physical games division. Now, I know a lot of people are going to point at Microsoft, at Xbox as being the bad guys, because the prevailing thought being, oh, well, if they never bought Activision Blizzard in the first place, none of this would have happened. Obviously, I can't say for sure who would have been laid off and who wouldn't, but looking at the gaming industry as a whole, I think it's safe to say that with or without Microsoft's intervention, layoffs were still going to happen at both companies. The whole reason why Activision Blizzard was up for sale in the first place was that, well, it wasn't really doing well. And apparently, according to Tom Warren over at The Verge, Xbox social media has been instructed to be completely dark in the wake of these layoffs, so they don't have another situation like with what happened last time when they came out and tried to market this controller with the hashtag Feel the Burn, which people interpreted as like, oh, you're saying that, oh, because you fired a bunch of people, you want them to feel the burn. How messed up is that? At the time, I thought that was kind of a reach, but I do agree. I think their socials should go dark, pull back, regroup, focus on how you're going to market your upcoming games for the rest of the year. Indiana Jones, Stalker 2, Black Ops 6, focus on that. But amidst all of this craziness, especially with these layoffs, Xbox has one big thing going for them, at least according to analysts, and that's Xbox Cloud Gaming. Now, I got mixed feelings about cloud gaming. I think in my head, the concept of cloud gaming could be really cool, but in practice, it is so-so. Sometimes I have pretty decent experiences gaming on the cloud or streaming, other times not so much. But according to Bloomberg Intelligence, they are projecting a massive increase in revenue generated from cloud gaming specifically. And if their projections are correct, Microsoft could be due for a massive payday. In their report and their findings, they saw that in 2023, cloud gaming generated only $3.5 billion, which to a normal everyday person and YouTuber like me, that's a lot of money. But compared to how much money the rest of the gaming industry makes, it's pretty much nothing. They project that $3.5 billion in revenue to go all the way north of $40 billion in 10 years, with Microsoft poised to make a huge chunk of that $40 billion. Part of this graph from Bloomberg says that the majority of the money made by cloud gaming is going to come from paid advertisements. That sounds miserable. There has been talk about an ad-supported tier of Game Pass. I don't know how that's going to be incorporated into cloud gaming. There doesn't seem to be firm plans on it. That's just something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Apparently, cloud gaming is supposed to absolutely pop off in India, which according to Bloomberg does really well in terms of mobile gaming. I can't speak to what gamers want in India, so someone's going to have to educate me a little bit on that. But here in the West and the US and Southern California, I really just don't see it popping off. Outside of me and other people who are really into games and games news, most people don't even know about it. But I will say, in my little corner sliver of the internet, people seem to have some sort of interest in cloud gaming. I only say that because every time I talk about the Amazon Fire Stick, the video does really well. Compared to in the past, when I did whole videos about cloud gaming, people didn't really seem to care. It is hard to imagine a world where cloud gaming specifically makes that much money, because right now it's very conditional. You got to have good internet. You got to be close to a data center. With Xbox specifically, you got to be subscribed to the highest subscription tier that they have, Game Pass Ultimate. Sure, they're starting to lay the groundwork by rolling out the cloud gaming app to other devices like that Amazon Fire Stick, but I don't know. It is just hard to imagine. But I guess if I were to travel back 20 years into the past and tell someone that mobile gaming on your phone will out-earn all other aspects and sectors of the gaming industry combined, I mean, that would probably be hard to believe too. They're laying the groundwork. I see them putting in the work, but there's some things that they gotta address. Number one, cloud gaming only tier. This is something that we've heard that they're gonna do eventually. Number two, Xbox has to make it to where you can stream games that you own through the cloud. I had to break the news to my poor wife that she could not buy Cat Quest 3 and stream it to her Amazon Fire Stick downstairs. So thanks, Xbox, for ruining her day. Also, keep in mind, Xbox signed away their global licensing streaming rights to Ubisoft in order to get their deal approved with Activision Blizzard over in the UK. Specifically from the Activision Blizzard catalog, so their biggest franchises like Call of Duty, Diablo, Overwatch, they don't have cloud gaming rights to any of those games. And there's no guarantee that Ubisoft will even let Xbox put Call of Duty on their own cloud streaming service. I say the last thing they have to address is that, well, the other competitors in the market. NVIDIA GeForce Now is widely regarded as the top tier streaming service. In terms of quality, in terms of the product itself, it's widely regarded as way better than Xbox Cloud Gaming. In terms of the bitrate, the resolution, the frame rate, GeForce Now is apparently able to smoke Xbox on all of that. So they're really going to have to lean into their own catalog and library of games, as well as some other perks and peripherals if they wanted to attract cloud gaming only customers. But with all this talk about cloud gaming, now listen, I hope that it works out for Xbox. I hope that all of this work that they've put into cloud gaming pays off in the long run and that it catches on in some way, because I do think at its core it is a good idea. But the one thing I don't want to happen is that they just go full kilter into cloud gaming and they ignore everything else. They abandon hardware. Hopefully they still have time to focus on other aspects of their business, console and PC. Keep the holy trinity of the ecosystem. Don't just go all in on cloud gaming. Continue to support and nurture those other aspects. Final Fantasy as a franchise holds a very special place in a lot of gamers' hearts, mine included. I have amazing memories working through Final Fantasy VII with my older brother, and then once the PS2 rolled around, playing through Final Fantasy X and X2, running around with my girl Lightning. But unfortunately, Final Fantasy and Xbox have always kind of been separate. I've always associated integrated Final Fantasy with PlayStation. And well, that's because a lot of their games do not show up on the Xbox platform. And that's been an ongoing conversation, especially this generation, as more and more mainline Final Fantasy games skip over Xbox. Final Fantasy 16, Rebirth, the Final Fantasy 7 remake. Unfortunately, it seems that Square Enix's partnership with PlayStation hasn't really been working out with a lot of their new releases, especially they haven't really been seeing the sales numbers that they've been wanting to. And coincidentally, Xbox not too long ago was like, we have this new revamped relationship with Square Enix. We're going to start bringing more of their games over to Xbox, starting with Final Fantasy 14. Despite those remarks and the fact that they were making a big show out of this new relationship with Square Enix, there were still a lot of question marks, like Final Fantasy 16, the Final Fantasy 7 remakes. Then just a couple of weeks ago, the producer and director on Final Fantasy 14 and 16 insisted that the future was bright in terms of Final Fantasy games making their way over to Xbox. And for anyone still waiting for those major games to make their way onto the Series X and S, well, we got even more good news via Jez Corden on the Xbox 2 podcast. He said, I've heard that the whole slate is on the docket, including Final Fantasy 7 and 16 and Pixel remasters. A lot of people were wondering if Sony had locked down Final Fantasy 7 forever. I've heard that is not the case and that Final Fantasy 7 will eventually come to Xbox. I don't know when it will, and I don't know if it'll be in the first wave. You'll probably expect to see Pixel remasters and maybe Final Fantasy 16 initially. After that, the editor for VG247 followed up on a forum on Reset Era and added, I'll go ahead and just outright say that to my knowledge, there is presently no active development on an Xbox version of Remake or Rebirth. They will obviously eventually do it, but as far as being an active port development now, to my understanding, which I am quite confident in, they are not. 16, I think, is more obvious and clear-cut. You only need to look at Yoshida's comments over the last 6 or so months. It's clear that will happen sooner rather than later. So it looks like 16 definitely happening. Remake and Rebirth, we don't really know. Now, as we've discussed on the channel before, there is this whole assumption that Xbox fans do not care about Final Fantasy. And while that may be the case, yeah, sure, Xbox players are more interested in shooters or sports games or whatever. There is at least one person, me, that would like to see Final Fantasy games, all Final Fantasy games, on Xbox. Whether or not you're personally interested in Final Fantasy on Xbox, it's always good to at least have the option, to know that it's there, to know that you can buy and play it if you want to. Jez Corden, in addition to a bunch of other YouTubers, insiders, whatever, believe that they'll make the announcement at Tokyo Game Show. Just like last year, Xbox has confirmed that they're going to have a presence this year at Tokyo Game Show. And while they don't usually have any internet breaking announcements, they have historically announced some cool stuff, like some additions to Microsoft Flight Simulator and other things like that. And considering that Square is a Japanese-based publisher, it would be the perfect time to announce Xbox versions of Final Fantasy 16 and Pixel Remaster. GameRakes, in an article that they also put out, talks about this guy named Ryan, who also says that Jez Corden is absolutely right when it comes to this. Nate Drake is backing this up as well. King David from the Iron Lords podcast is speaking on it. King David also separately suggested that they'll have some other really big announcements at Tokyo Game Show, alluding sort of to a big Game Pass edition, and also the possible announcement of the Xbox version of Black Myth Wukong. Some people separately are saying that the Game Pass announcement that they have is going to be Black Myth. I would be absolutely floored, shocked, gobsmacked, bamboozled if that was the case. The prevailing rumor right now is that Xbox doesn't have Black Myth Wukong because PlayStation signed an exclusivity deal with Game Science. And in the past, we've seen that PlayStation, well, when they sign these types of deals, they also put in a clause that says you can't put the game on rival subscription services, i.e. Game Pass. Now, unless this was a deal that Game Science and Xbox worked out prior to the release of Black Myth, I just don't see Wukong appearing on the Game Pass library, at least not yet. The game is selling like crazy. It's super popular. So not only do they not need the extra exposure that Game Pass would provide, but it could potentially cut into sales of their game. A lot of very interesting rumors swirling around this whole thing, but everything that we're hearing is at least consistent to what these companies are saying on the surface, especially these comments from Square Enix. Anyways, guys, that's all the Xbox stuff I have to talk about today. Thanks so much for joining me for another edition of Xbox Ready. If you made it this far into the video, consider subscribing. Help me on my journey to get to 200,000. I guess a more reasonable goal right now would be 180,000 subs. Either way, I could really use your help in getting there. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.